Today's guest has 3 startups and 3 exits, 5 times best-selling author and host of the Faster Than Normal podcast. Peter Shankman, welcome to the show.
It is good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Peter, it is my pleasure. I've been really diving into your content. You're doing some fantastic things, but I want to kind of start by talking a little bit about the podcast. What was the inspiration? Why did you decide to start the Faster Than Normal podcast?
So the Faster Than Normal podcast, I grew up with massive ADHD, but as a kid, it wasn't called ADHD. It was called sit down, you disrupted the class disease, because it didn't exist when I was a kid. And so I have spent, it wasn't until my early mid 30s where I realized, holy crap, this has a name. All my weird stuff has a name. And I realized that all the success I've had has come from my ADHD, not in spite of, but because of. And so once I realized that, I'm like, okay, I should be able to do almost anything with this. Let me see if there's anyone else out there like that. And sure enough, there are tons of people who are in the same boat. And so I learned from there what to do, how to do it. Everything I've done has, come from these rules that I've sort of built, right? And it started and all this stuff. So from there, I'm like, let me share this with the world. And it became a podcast. And tomorrow we actually launch our 200th episode. We drop our 200th episode tomorrow. So very useful.
Congratulations. Amazing. It even turned into a book due to the popularity. So one of the things that I love about this, Peter, is historically we look at a problem, quote unquote, like ADHD and say, okay, I got to throw medicine at it. We got to fix it. I got to be normal. But what I absolutely love is that you are leveraging your superpower and just creating some amazing things. So I'm kind of curious, when you found out that, you got diagnosed with ADHD, were you concerned, or were you like, okay, well, this makes sense. I'm going to keep going on doing what I'm doing? How did you handle that?
The second I did it, everything started to make sense. All of a sudden I realized, okay, this explains so much. How come I could start a business and sell it in 2 years, but can't keep a relationship going for 3 months? Like all these things started to clean up and started to make sense. And yeah, life became a lot clearer at that moment.
So let's dive into that a little bit more deeply. What areas of your life did you say, okay, this is a product of the way that I am, right? So super focused, like how can we look at ourselves as entrepreneurs and say, hey, maybe I have some pieces of this and I can actually leverage this superpower to execute at a higher level?
Well, one of the things that I realized is, I just wasn't like everyone else. I was very different. And we grow up in a society where if you're different, that's wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And so being able to sort of understand that it's not wrong, and rather being different is actually incredibly useful.
Yeah.
Right? And the things you can do with being different are game changers. So for me, realizing that, sort of understanding how to make things work for me, all of a sudden the craziness and everything, came to fruition. And so if you're an entrepreneur and you're constantly fighting against the whole, oh, what should I be doing and how should I be doing it and why aren't I like anyone else? Stop fighting it, right? We're not designed to constantly fight against our reality. We're designed to embrace it and make it work for us. And I think it's something that a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, one of the hardest things I think right now is handling the social media and all the distractions that we have going on out in the world right now. So what are some ways that we can actually drown out that social media noise and really stay focused, really stay honed? Because I have a problem with this too. Probably during the course of this conversation, my phone's going to blip at me 10 times, right? So how can we stay focused?
The first thing you can do is shut off those blips. Right. The only thing that beeps on my phone is my calendar alerts to let me know you have something that you've scheduled coming up in 10 minutes or 5 minutes. I quit Facebook. I still have an account, but I don't check it. I deleted the apps off my phone. I use Instagram. I use Twitter. I use LinkedIn. Rarely, I hate it. But Instagram, Twitter, things like that, I'm fine with. I use WhatsApp, but I don't have alerts. I check them on my time. One thing we have to learn is that we control our schedules. We control our technology. Our technology and our schedules do not control us. And once we realize that, life becomes a lot better. When I go to sleep at night, my daughter usually sleeps at 8 o'clock. I'm usually up by like 8:30, 8:45. And when I go to bed, I shut off my phone. I don't just silence it. I shut it off. Because if I get up at 1 a.m. or wake up to go pee or whatever, 2 a.m, if my phone's on, even if it sounds, I'm going to look at it.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden I'm letting all this white light into my brain, and I'm not going to get back to sleep healthily if I get back to sleep at all. But if it's off, I'm not going to waste that minute and a half it takes to boot up just to check something. So I'm going to go back to sleep. And, you know, the number of times that people have needed me when my phone has been off has been exactly zero.
That's
Right.
fair
I have
enough.
my daughter.
We
That's all that matters. You know, I don't really need anyone who needs me for a business thing at 2 a.m. will be fine. When I get up around 3:30, quarter to 4 anyway. So they'll get me 2 hours later. That's fine.
Yeah, and this is kind of congruent with something that Tim Ferriss talks about is, hey, I answer my emails once a day. I've got a 30-minute limit because
See,
that's one of the first things.
I don't agree with Ferriss on that. I
Okay.
don't agree with the concept of answering once a day because during the day you can miss stuff, right? I've gotten keynotes and speeches because people have contacted me and I'm the first person to reply.
Mm,
But again, I accept the fact that during the day I'm going to look at emails,
yeah.
but not when it's my time.
So it's kind of about leveraging your time and maybe your mental state, because I don't think a lot of people understand this, that your brain kind of goes through different levels throughout the course of the day, right?
Not only does it go through different levels, but every time you get a Slack notification, every time you get an email notification, anytime something dings or beeps, two things happen. Number one, your body creates dopamine, and then you want some more, and that's how you wind up becoming addicted to social media. But number two is that it takes roughly anywhere from 12 to 24 minutes to get back into a state of what's called deep work. So you're working along, you're typing, ding goes Slack. You're now out for 24 minutes. If you get 2 dings an hour, you've gotten a roughly 2 minutes of actual usable deep work time in an hour. Multiply that by a day, you're working for full 16 minutes of actual work over the course of your day. The rest of the time is spent stargazing, gazing off, looking into space, like, oh, how do I get back into my... No way. I do all my writing on airplanes. I used to before the whole world got sick.
Yeah.
But, you know, I still do that. I'm going to Dubai next week simply because I need some time to write. You know, it's worth understanding how your brain works and acting appropriately. Again, if you try to fight, you know, I've yet to see anyone successfully fight pushing the waves back into the ocean, right? You have to understand what works for you and do it.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is probably the most important thing we can be focusing on now. It's ourselves and what makes us real. Because it's so easy to compare yourself to everyone else on social media and what the gurus, the experts think. But being honest to yourself is really what's important. And that's what I really love about what you're doing, Peter, and empowering people through the Faster Than Normal podcast and through your book, Faster Than Normal. Hey, Mark here. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Let YouTube know you're enjoying this video. Let me know you're enjoying this video. All right, let's get back into this episode. I want to dive in a little bit more deeply in this concept of deep work, okay? Because when I've heard you talk about this before, it really resonated with me. About 2 years ago, I started working on children's book illustrations. I got a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old. I said, oh, I like art. I'm going to do that. And I would find myself in a dark room for 9 hours straight, and I would emerge. And my family's like, "Where have you been?" I'm like, I've been drawing. So what are some ways that we can actually get into the deep work and maybe some of the downsides to getting way too deep into that deep work?
So you can give yourself sort of time and alerts to let yourself back out. So, you know, I do get a buzz on my phone every 50 or on my watch every 50 minutes telling me to stand up. So if I've been sitting and writing, you know, especially if on a plane, I will stand up. A lot of times I'll tell the flight attendants, I'll go to the galley. I'm usually sitting up front, so they don't mind so much. But I'll tell them, okay, I'm just FYI that every 60 or 90 minutes, I'm going to come into your galley. If you're not busy, I'm going to drop into 20 push-ups. And they look at me like, okay. But, you know, over a 14-hour flight to Tokyo, I'm writing. I wrote, my record, I think, was 28,500 words in a 14-hour flight to Tokyo. And every 90 minutes, I'd drop, I'd do more push-ups, I'd get a Diet Coke, and I'd keep going. And it works.
I'm just curious, how did you figure this out that, hey, when I'm going to write a book, I'm just going to go on airplane flights? How did you put that together?
I travel so much that I was finding that I would get, you know, on a day that I had a flight, I'd get my next 8 blog posts written, right? I'd get everything done. And then, you know, on days that I wasn't flying, I'm like, God, why am I productive? Holy shit, it's the airplane. I mean, it's not the airplane per se, but it's the fact that what am I going to do, right? I'm on United, so the Wi-Fi rarely works anyway. But, you know, so I'm not going to get distracted by that. What can I do while I'm there? And once you realize all the stuff that you can do, it's very, very easy to keep yourself going.
Yeah, and to me, it sounds like you're just being very cognizant and listening to yourself, paying attention to what's happening in your own life, because it can be really easy to miss that,
So,
right?
but that really is it. Like on a plane, I don't get distracted. Those distractions don't happen, right? And so it becomes, where are you most capable of doing your work? And for me, being on that plane allows me to make sure that that's where I am. And you know, again, on the days that I wasn't traveling, I'm like, God, I'm not productive here. So if I can knock off 2 weeks worth of work in one flight, it's worth every penny.
Yeah, no
Plus,
kid.
chances are I'm flying there to work anyway.
Sure. Sure. Well, that's what it's all about. It's making the most use of your time, leveraging your own body, your own person. And that's what I love about what you're doing, Peter, is you're being kind of cognizant, you're being aware, you're paying attention to yourself, right? Because it's so easy to get caught up in this hamster wheel of, well, this is what I do. This is what I do, instead of saying and paying attention to where you're being most efficient. I think it's really important that we as business owners and as human beings, we're paying attention to ourselves. Another thing that you mentioned here, and I know you've had a lot of success with, is exercise and physical activity. How important is that to you and to entrepreneurs to be paying attention to our body and being physically active?
It is huge. So, especially with the ADHD thing, I mean, I've just learned some very basic, simple truths that if I don't exercise first thing in the morning, I just don't have a good day. And, a lot of it is because the dopamine that I get from that exercise allows me to focus and stay focused all day without needing, ADHD medication, which I'm not against per se. I have a prescription. I just don't have to take it that often.
Mhm.
So for me, being able to focus on what matters and the important stuff and getting it done has to start with exercise. Now, being a single dad, I don't have that much time to do that. So I get up around 3:30 in the morning. I was on my Peloton this morning at 4:05, I think, 4:10. I rode for an hour until 5:10, and then at 5:30, I trained with my trainer for an hour virtually, all while my daughter was asleep in her room. And so by 6 o'clock, no, by 7 o'clock, I was showered, dressed, and in the kitchen making her breakfast as she was waking up, with 2 hours of exercise, 1,100 calories burned, and all the dopamine I need for the day, under my belt. And you know, it's so funny because people say, "Oh my God, what you get up at 3:30 in the morning? What are you, a farmer?" This works for me. And then I have other people say, "Oh wow, I wish I could get up that early." I'm like, well, you can. No, I don't know how to do it. I don't have, I don't have the ability. I'm always too tired. I'm like, well, what time you go to bed? Like, oh, around 1. Well, yeah, that's kind of why,
Right.
and they'll be there, and I'll see them. They're like, liking photos of a car owned by some guy they haven't seen since second grade on Facebook. And I'm like, well, it's not that you don't have the time. It's that you don't have the desire. Every action has an equal opportunity, equal and opposite reaction. So if your action is getting up at 3:30 in the morning to go work out, the equal and opposite reaction is you got to go to bed earlier. So it's not so much about it becomes, what's the most important thing for you? What's the desire, and what is most important? And for me, I know how I'm going to feel if I work out, and I know how I'm going to feel if I'm not. And I know that if I don't, I have a much the chances of my blowing my eating clean and the chance of my ordering an entire pizza and then eating the entire pizza go up a lot
Yeah.
more. And so you look down that road, I wake up in the morning, 3:30, I'm like, how am I going to feel in 12 hours? How miserable am I going to be, happy or miserable? And you sort of play that tape backwards or play the tape forwards, as it were. You say, okay, if I want to be happy, at 4 or 5 p.m. in the afternoon, it has to start now. And here's what I have to do to get there. And it sounds basic, and it really is kind of basic. But on the flip side, it's also, it's hard to fight with your bed at 3:30 in the morning. The bed usually wins. And
Right.
so you have to do whatever you can to sort of stack the odds in your favor. I go to sleep in my gym clothes. I fall asleep in a pair of um, bike shorts and socks. I wake up, I clip into my shoes, I throw on my heart rate monitor, and I'm working out. I don't have to think. If I had to think about it, I'd never fucking do it.
Oh, well, I love this. So this is absolutely gold. It's removing those obstructions to getting it done. You make it as easy as possible for yourself. Although I will say, I don't think my wife would let me sleep in my gym clothes. That might be another.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised how not only is it easy, but it's no different really than wearing a pair of underwear and a t-shirt.
That's
It's
fair.
just it's a clean pair of shorts, and you go to work. And again, it's that waking up and having, oh, I don't want to, oh, and I have to
Yeah.
get, everything's eliminated. I keep a fresh towel on the bike. I have the heart rate monitor hanging from the clip. I keep my shoes clipped in to the bike, so I don't even have to think about that. Oh, it's too loud to clip in. I just put them on.
Yeah, making it as easy as possible. Again, like, so, I mean, you could take this to the nth degree. So, for example, maybe you know that coffee is what gets you going. So you already set your Keurig. It's already automatic. It already is lighting up that fire, and lighting up that coffee first thing in the morning. Super, super. And listen, I don't necessarily think that you have to be a morning person. You have to be a night owl. I think it, again, it's about being true to yourself. But I do think that it is really important that you're moving that body, because, like, I know that that's some of the time where I get some of my best thinking done, right? Your mind kind of goes in different areas when the blood is pumping and it's moving, rather than when it's sitting stagnant in a single place, you know?
No question about it. And it's all about the dopamine. Everyone talks about, perfect example is, everyone knows that if you check your texts or whatever as you're driving, you're going to, at some point, your odds are going to fail and you're going to kill yourself and probably kill
Yeah.
other people. Yet everyone still does it. And the reason is because when you get a notification, you get a hit of dopamine.
Mm.
And people don't realize how addictive dopamine is. It literally is the pleasure chemical, pleasure drug. There's a reason that you're never going to stop the cocaine trade. That you'd be better off legalizing it, because the amount of pleasure people get from it. I'm not pro or con. I'm not judging, but it's a simple chemical reaction, and it's that same chemical that your body makes when you work out or when you do something fun, and it's the same chemical your body makes when you get a text. And so the key is to harness that dopamine in positive ways,
Yeah.
in beneficial ways that actually allow you to make the most of it. There's a reason that when I work out all day, or I work out first thing in the morning, I'm high as a kite all day and happy, right? I'm a skydiver. I have over 500 jumps, and there's a reason for that too. It's not a coincidence that I'm a skydiver, right? I jump out of planes because I get that same high. When
Mm.
I land, I'm high as a kite. I'll bring my laptop to the drop zone. I'll do a jump. I'll throw my gear in the corner when I land, and I'll write 10,000 words. And the difference between something natural like that, like exercising or skydiving, whatever, versus something chemical like a drug, is that when you take the drug, your body dishes out all the dopamine it has. Oh my God, I need to do it. And you have nothing left. And that's where the crash comes in.
Mm.
If you do it the right way, I'll go for a run first thing in the morning, or exercise or skydive or whatever. I'll be high as a kite all day, feeling great and being productive and everything. And then it starts to fade off just as it's bedtime.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Awesome.
perfect. And it's probably not something that you found overnight, but you started implementing runs. Well, I feel better after a run. I feel, and so I think this is probably the biggest problem that we have is 99.9% of people out there are getting their dopamine in negative ways. Maybe not all of it, but a lot of that. It's the number of
It's
likes you get
a
on an
high
Instagram
number.
post.
Yeah, no question about it. And it certainly is not helping the fact that we've been locked down for 7 months.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. I mean, that's a whole nother story. I work with a local mental health organization, and that's certainly a big challenge to overcome. But I love this. So I'm kind of also curious. You've also, Peter, in addition to the podcast Faster Than Normal, the book Faster Than Normal, you've also started a mastermind program, Shankminds. You can check this out at shankminds.com. And so I'm curious, how important has community and the Shankminds movement been in helping yourself and other entrepreneurs in similar situations?
If you don't have accountability, you have nothing. And so when I sold my last company, Help a Reporter, about 10 years ago, I got all these emails from, oh, you should join my mastermind for CEOs, and it's only 50,000 bucks a month. And I'm like, okay, number one, bitch, if I had 50,000 bucks a month, I wouldn't need your mastermind. Number two, um, where the hell were you when I was building? Right? Where the hell were you when I needed it? And so I'm like, I wanted to see if I could fix that. So I started a group, 89 bucks a month, with the premise that we'd be accountable to each other. And I'd hold the calls and all that stuff, but we'd be accountable to each other. And having that accountability has been so useful. You can't do anything unless you have accountability for it, whether it's a best friend or a client or whatever. So being able to do that has been just tremendously helpful. And the goal was to get a good solid group of people. We have about 75 people. And yeah, it's very, very beneficial.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine how important. And this is something that's been coming up time after time after time again in my interviews with top performing entrepreneurs like yourself. It's surrounding yourself with the right people. It's being in these masterminds. It's actually amazing how many of these top entrepreneurs you see are in these types of mastermind programs. So I'm kind of curious on on your side, Peter, you've done a good job of getting people into your mastermind. How do you keep them there? Because I would
Well,
imagine bounce rate's a problem.
so bounce rate's not so much a problem if you look at it differently. My premise has always been like, I don't want you here if you don't want to be here. Right? The people I want in the mastermind are the ones who are going to be active and participating, and the ones who are going to actually be providing help to other people. If you don't want to do that, then I don't want you there. I mean, I'm not doing a mastermind. I'm not doing this to make a ton of money. I mean, I make a few bucks from it, but it's certainly not. If I wanted to do that, I'd have 5 people. I'd charge them each 10 grand. Right? It's not about that. For me, it's literally about being able to give back. And so the people that, if I see that someone hasn't been active in a few weeks or a month, I'm going to check in on them. Hey, is everything all right? Oh yeah, it's been really busy. And if it keeps going like that, I'm going to say, hey, you know what? I don't think it's that you're busy. We all have the same, oh, I just didn't have the time. No, you do. You just don't have the desire. And it goes back to what we talked about earlier. So I've forcibly kicked people out of the group because I want it to be useful for you. And if it's not, what's the point?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the classic adage of one spoiled apple ruins the whole bunch, right? And I think that's probably the key. I interviewed another great guy, Larry Hagner, who said the same thing. He's mirrored the same thing. Yeah, great guy. And he mirrored the same thing. He said, hey, listen, some people they got cold hard cash, but we have to push them away because they're just not a fit for what we're doing. So I think that is definitely important. I want to circle back to something, Peter, because I think that another problem that a lot of people have is saying, I want to do something, but they don't commit to it. They say, I'll start it tomorrow. I'll start it next month. I'll start it next year, right? At this point, you're skydiving. You've run 23 marathons. You've done an Ironman. You're an Ironman triathlete. This is something that's been on my mind. I want to do these things. I've done the half marathon in under 2 hours, which was a big accomplishment for me. I was pretty excited about that. I really want to get up to that marathon level, but quote unquote, I don't have time, right? How do you actually pull the trigger and make it happen, Peter? Let me know. Give me some advice.
Sign up for it. Once you spend money on it, it's real. Once you spent the money, once you have a date, I should do that someday is not an actuality. Someday is not an actuality. November 21st, 2021 is an actuality. That's a real date, right? I signed up for my first Ironman a year in advance. And I'm like, well, I have 1 year. If I don't, I can either train or not train, but either way, I have a year. Time's going to pass regardless. Right? I tell my daughter that all the time. I'm like, honey, you can complain about this or you can move on. Either way, it's going to be nighttime soon. You're going to have to go to bed. Do you want to spend the hour that you have left complaining, or do you want to go have some fun? Right? So at the end of the day, sign up for it. Put a date. Put your credit card up. I have some friends who say, oh, I'm going to give you $1,000, and if I finish this marathon, you give it back to me. So I want you to hold it. It'll cost me. I'm like, you don't need to do that. Just sign up for the race.
Well, I think something psychologically does happen when you put skin in the game, right? When you put money in the game, you lock in a date.
It simply becomes real.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't do. They don't make it real. Once it's real, it's there.
Yeah. No, I really like that. I really like that idea. I don't know if my knees are going to like me too much, but you know what? When I do run this marathon, when I sign up for it, I'm definitely going to tag you. I'm going to let you know. I'm going to be like, Peter is the man. He's the one who made it happen for me.
Shout my name as you cross the finish line.
I'm sorry?
Shout my name as you cross the finish line.
There we go. I'll definitely be thinking of you. Maybe I'll be listening to the podcast as I run the Faster Than Normal podcast. Awesome, Peter. So Peter, you've been dropping a ton of knowledge bombs. Before I let you go, I would definitely be remiss if I didn't take you through the world famous rapid fire section. So buckle up, get ready, put on your parachute, whatever you got to do. About to get into it. You ready?
Go for it.
Cool. What is a must-have business item that costs less than $50?
A 2-pound bag of M&Ms. You would be amazed. I'm not even joking. I don't get on a flight without a 2-pound bag of M&Ms. I give it to the lead flight attendant, and it improves the flight for every single person on board.
Oh, wow. You give it to the flight attendant.
I give the flight attendant, and I let her or him give it out to their coworkers. And I'm like, guys, I know you have a tough job. This is for you. Please share it with your coworkers. And I walk back to my seat, and they are in chocolate heaven for the entire flight. They're smiling. Everyone else is happy. It costs $12. And we live in such a world of diminished expectations that I don't need you to be awesome. I just need you to just suck slightly less than everyone else. And a lot of times a $12 bag of M&Ms will do just that.
I love that. I love that. If you add peanut butter M&Ms too, y'all can send them my way. I'll be happy to take them. What is a must-have subscription, Peter?
New York Times. I've been subscribed to that for years, and I actually gifted every year. I gift subscriptions to kids I know in college and things like that. You can never learn enough, and you should subscribe to things that you believe in, but also subscribe to things that don't necessarily fit your genre. Like I have a subscription to a fishing magazine. Everyone's like, "What the hell? Where are you? What are you fishing the Hudson River right here?" It's to learn something new, and I know a lot about fishing, and you'd be surprised when that comes in handy.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe one day when you have to fish for your life, you'll be the guy. You never know what tomorrow's going to bring. We're living in unprecedented times, so
No doubt.
I'm with you there. If you had 10 seconds with yourself 10 years ago, what would you say?
Stop worrying what other people think and just do your thing.
Hmm.
That
You
changed
drop,
my life.
yeah, you drop a mic on that one for sure, but we're not quite there yet. If you woke up in the morning, Peter, and there was only one business related task you could do for the day, what would you do?
Email people and ask them how I can help them.
Final question here for you, Peter. If you had a billboard message that could reach millions of people, what would you put on your billboard?
If you don't like where you are, move. You're not a tree.
Peter said it. I agree with it. Peter Shankman, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Good times.
Thank you so much for watching. I'm glad you enjoyed this episode. I've got several other episodes right here for you. Smash one of these videos to make sure that you don't miss out on the tips, tools, and tactics of industry experts. Let's take that side hustle full time. Smash one of these links.